All right. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. We're starting today at the Derail Valley Railway Museum, where we're going to be commencing our look through each of the available locomotives in this game. I am going to take each one out of the museum, take it on a little spin, particularly a freight job with each one, and I'm going to talk about at least one thing that there is to like about each locomotive and one thing there is to dislike. So, to get us started, the venerable DE2, or as I call it, small but mighty. This little guy can, best case, pull a grand total of 1,200 tons, but you really only see that when you're shunting with it. For open road jobs, you're pretty much looking at a limit of 250 tons, worst case. Breakers on, get our switches going, start up this mighty machine, set the brake cutoff, and let's get our headlights on. Well, looks like the fog has cleared up a little bit. Okay, and looks like we will need some wipers. And I always use the cab fan. You know, it's good to have ventilation. Naturally, that does not actually do anything, but yeah, you know, it breaks up the monotony a little bit. So obviously, a large part of this video is not only just showcasing these locomotives, but also highlighting one thing to like and one thing to dislike about each one of these. And when it comes to the DE2, there's quite a bit to like. It is indeed small but mighty. It is, of course, meant to be more of a shunting engine, and it will carry you through the entirety of the game doing shunting jobs. It can pull up to 1,200 tons, as we've seen, and that's enough for most loads in the game on level ground. However, once you're using it for the open rails, it does have a bit more of a limitation. It will top out kind of worst case uphill in the rain at 250 tons. But that said, there's an awful lot of loads in the game that are under that size. And also, the DE2 is multiple unit compatible, so you can easily connect it with another DE2 or one of the other compatible locomotives like the DE6 or DH4 to add a little bit of extra power to your train consist. This thing is also dirt cheap to run, has very low operating costs. But specifically, one thing I like about it is, and you can only see this if you use the, if you either keep track in your head or if you use the driver overlay over here. But notice that the throttle actually goes to 11. I always like that. It's just, it's one louder than 10. Now, when it comes to something that you might not like about the DE2, kind of hard to find something really, but really its Achilles heel is the cooling system. Some of the more advanced diesel engines like the DH4 and the DE6 have some kind of active cooling, a fan that kicks in when the heat starts to get away from you. The DE2 doesn't have anything like that. It relies on passive cooling just as it moves through the air. And in most cases, that's not a big deal, but if you are going slowly, particularly trying to struggle up a hill, it's going to have a hard time dissipating the heat, and you can fairly easily, in some cases, get stuck in kind of that doom spiral of need to go faster to dissipate the heat, but can't. But that's pretty situational. Honestly, some of my best memories in this game have been of my early freight jobs using the DE2. Just being able to, once you get a feel for things, kind of sit back, relax, listen to the engine, and watch the scenery go by, especially in the early game when it's not all so familiar, right? There's a little bit of sense of wonder and whimsy. It's a very fun loco. One thing that it's very important we evaluate when looking at each of these locomotives is, of course, the horn, which is properly done inside a tunnel. I would say this is a reasonably okay horn, especially for such a tiny locomotive. It's somewhat satisfying. I have no notes. We also have to slow down. We're actually not too far from the harbor, so we've had a nice little cruise here. This switch gets me every time. But thankfully, driving a light train, we're a lot less likely to derail there. We'll say the first job I did coming out of that tunnel approaching the harbor for the first time was pretty impressive. It's the largest station complex in the game, and at the time I wondered, wait, are there other stations this big? There are not, but it was still nice to see something so grandiose. Okay, we are pulling into the Harbortown station here in our little work train with our DE2 pulling our steel rails. We're ready to get this train shut down, uncoupled, and we're going to turn this mission in. Some closing notes here. It's a great little locomotive. You can find something to use it for throughout the whole game. Just don't get it too hot. Next up, we have the S060, our first steam engine, or as I like to call it, the little engine that almost could. This little monster performs slightly better than the DE2. Shunting, it can pull up to 1,500 tons, and on the open rails, worst case, we're looking at about 300 tons uphill and in the rain. Now it's time to stoke the fire and blow some hot air. And we're going to drive the locomotive, too. All right, and we can get a fire going. Oh, looks like I left some coal in here from earlier. That'll help us out a little bit. But let's go ahead and get her filled up. We are now ready to get going here, so we can undo the brake. Cylinder cocks are open. Let's go ahead and get rolling. Okay, we are somewhat up and running. As far as things to like and dislike about this locomotive, something to like, it's a nice introduction to running steam. You know, that I like that they give you a small engine that you can use to kind of learn the mechanics of steam without having to jump into something big and expensive like the S282, although that's a really neat loco. I need to use a little more brake here. On the other hand, something that you might not like about this loco, just kind of the short legs. It doesn't hold a ton of water, so you're not going to be able to take it too far, but honestly, that you can't really complain about that. That's just kind of by design. It is primarily a shunting engine, so it's not really meant for long trips. So can't really hate on it too much. Let's get the injector open here. I'd let it get too low. But yeah, on another note, honestly, I find the whistle on this one to be a little bit anemic, kind of like someone whistling through their teeth. But I guess that's par for the course with a very small steam engine. It also has a pretty low capacity for speed. The speedometer only goes up to 60 kph. What happens if you exceed that? I've actually never tried it. It probably doesn't explode, but I don't think it's a particularly good idea either. Overall, this is a very fun engine. It kind of gets you into the world of steam with a minimum of effort, and especially in the beginning, it's a very cheap locomotive to operate. The license is cheap. It's the first license I bought, actually, after the DE2. The fact that it just doesn't have great range isn't that big a deal in the early game. So yeah, can't complain about it too much. It does a great job at exactly what it was designed for, which is shunting around the yard and short trips. So can't hate. Yeah, and as with any steam locomotive, you do have to be a bit proactive in managing your steam. I let us go from a downhill to an uphill without managing the steam properly, so we're going to be slowing down a little bit on our final approach to the sawmill. But we are maintaining our speed okay, even if that speed is a bit lower. Alright, and we are pulling into the sawmill station here, having completed our quick little run with the wonderful S060 steam locomotive. So we had a nice little run with our trusty little steam engine friend here, and now we're ready to move on. Next in line is the DM3 diesel mechanical locomotive, or, as I like to call it, grind it till you find it. This machine is classed as a heavy shunter, meaning you get some more capacity on level ground, 2,000 tons to be precise. And worst case, open rails, you're going to be pulling 400 tons. Okay, we should be in good shape regarding switches. Let's go ahead and get this thing started up. So get our breakers, start this mighty engine, and turn on our lights here. Okay. So yeah, I'm already coupled up and ready to go. So we just need to make sure we're in forwards here and release the brake. I'm not going to start in gear 1. No, I'm going to start in gear 2, which you can actually do with this thing, unless you're struggling too much. You can see us getting going here. So now to touch on things that you might like and dislike about this locomotive. Honestly, I would rate the gearbox as a positive. It's kind of a nice middle ground between the complexity of a steam engine and the simplicity of the diesel electric, and it just adds some variety. You know, I'm very glad that all the locomotives don't have this strange gearbox, but I'm glad that one does. We have to shift gears again here. I've driven this thing many times, but I still need a refresher from the gear diagrams most of the time. Honestly, I also like the sound of this. I think when you really rev it, it sounds pretty cool, like a big diesel engine should. Now, as for something that you might not like about this locomotive, it is, I believe, the slowest one in the game. And that can be kind of frustrating sometimes. Many times I've taken this out for a run just to get some variety, and I always just kind of realize just exactly how slow it is. It's going to take a long time to get up to speed, and it's not going to top out very high. So as we are motoring our way out of the goods factory, we can take a look at what this thing looks like. We're pulling a pretty small load. I've had a lot of runs with this engine where I got too confident and put too much weight behind it and didn't have a great time, so yeah, we're playing it safe today. We also need to test out the horn for this thing. Yeah, I don't know. Not sure how I feel about that. Yeah, you know, I think that horn passes. It's satisfying enough. Need to do some slowing down here. Yeah, I tend to forget that this loco, like the steam engines, does not have the self-lapping brakes. That doesn't bother me too much, though, provided that you can remember that the loco you're operating is like that. It's not too big a deal. Yeah, the DM3 is also notable in that it is one of the least expensive locomotives to run. All right, looks like we're approaching a little bit of a grade here. Gonna throttle up. We're getting pretty close to dangerous RPMs, despite being in 8th gear. So yeah, that is unfortunately kind of the downside of this loco. Is it just is not very fast. Yeah, that's kind of the story of driving the DM3. Is we're going up a little grade, but we're at max throttle here, and we're barely holding our speed steady at about 30 kph. It is a slow locomotive. When I was in the earlier stages of the career mode in this game, I had kind of unrealistic expectations about the DM3. I had in my head that it was kind of just a flat upgrade to the DE2. That's not quite accurate. I mean, kind of in terms of shunting, it is, I guess. It's better in many ways, but I kind of thought the complexity of the gears would balance out a kind of an overall better engine, but that's not really the case. It's its own thing. And in hindsight, I think the novelty factor around the diesel mechanical transmission really works in its favor. All right, we are just about pulling into our slot here at the Coal Mine South, getting ready to wrap up our run of the DM3 diesel mechanical locomotive. Go ahead and run our brakes here. Bring us to a nice stop. Okay, we can now get this thing shut down, and we can move on to the next locomotive in our list. Next up, we have the ever-reliable DH4, sporting a diesel hydraulic transmission, or as I like to call it, go with the flow. Alternatively, cool me once. This one's a proper step up. For shunting on level ground, it can accommodate up to 2,000 tons, and worst case on the open roads, all the way up to 500 tons. Okay, so yeah, since our return to diesel with the DM3, we're now moving to another locomotive that has a unique transmission. This is the DH4. which, as you know, is a diesel hydraulic locomotive. So it's going to be a bit of a different experience than we saw with the DM3. So yeah, let's go ahead and get moving, and we can talk on the way. What we're doing today is we are going to be delivering some crude oil from the oil well north to the harbor. Now that we're on board, we can go ahead and start up this beast. So I need to remember where all the breakers are in this thing. They're back here. Then we can go ahead and start our engine. And always nice to turn on the cab fan. Oh, it was already on. Okay. So let's disengage our handbrake. Take a look outside. We're pulling this long train of crude oil here. And we are ready to get moving once I remember where the reverser is. There it is. So the DH4, I think for me at least, when I unlocked it, it felt kind of like making it to the big leagues. You know, I mentioned that I had some unrealistic expectations about the DM3, thinking that it was kind of the, you know, like an improved version of the DE2, which isn't strictly speaking accurate. The DH4 though kind of is like that, you know. It's, well, not a diesel electric, but it mostly operates like one. But it is significantly more powerful than the DE2, and it, you know, it feels different. It has you sit higher in the cab, and it can pull significantly heavier loads. So yeah, it is kind of a straight upgrade to the DE2, which is what I was hoping for. Now, as for things you might like and dislike about the DH4, one of the best things about it, I think, is actually the cooling fan. And what that does is, as the heat approaches kind of the beginning of the yellow area right there, it's going to click on that cooling fan, which adds some additional cooling capacity. And coming from the DE2, DM3 that really only rely on passive cooling, it's night and day, right? It helps immensely with overheating. Not to say the locomotive doesn't overheat, but it's a lot less common. The fan is I mean, it's such a small thing, but it really makes the locomotive a lot easier to use, and, you know, in many cases more fun. It really does have that kind of set it and forget it element. Let's go ahead and sound the horn here, as you need to do. How does that sound from the outside? You know, the horn on this thing has grown on me. When I sat down to make this video, I was going to say that the horn was the thing I disliked about it. But, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take a different route. So, yeah, this is a pretty enjoyable locomotive to drive. Oh, looks like I am getting close to heat there. We can back off on the throttle. So, yeah, if I were to pick something that I dislike about this locomotive, it's kind of hard to find, but I don't like the control layout quite as much as the other diesel electrics. You do sit higher in the cab in this locomotive, so that's a benefit, but I think that just given the limited field of view, that makes it a bit harder to get everything in frame at once. Even if I don't usually like to operate sitting if I can avoid it, I like to be able to see the tracks in front of us. But you see here, if I want to see everything, I can't see the brakes or the throttle. That's pretty minor, because this is overall a pretty great locomotive. So yeah, pretty hard to find fault. Though I do have to ask, why is the bell out here? That's also something I don't like, is why is the bell this annoying buzzer? You know, the bell should be a bell or something approximating it, not an indicator that my tea is ready. One other thing is this loco has some pretty high operating costs, like pretty much on par with those of the larger DE6. I'm not sure I agree with that from a design standpoint. Now that said, you know, this is a pretty good all-purpose engine, so it should be balanced out with operating costs. I'm not sure why they're that high. But yeah, once you get a little ways in the game, that's not really going to hold you back. You can watch as we progress through the goods factory with our sizable oil train. I always found this area by the goods factory to be one of the more picturesque parts of the game. I like the verticality, where if you're going in one direction, you're going to go over that upper viaduct to look down on the goods factory, but coming out this way, you get to see it from the lower perspective. Okay, we are going up a hill here, so we want to make sure we get a little bit more speed going. Actually, we need a lot more speed, so let's max out our throttle here. Ah, gotta love that fan. Yeah, this is a nice looking locomotive. It's got that kind of functional thing going for it, and again, it's it's a different configuration than any of the other locos, so it's unique, and I'm very glad that it's in the game. All right, we are entering our final stretch on our path from Oil Well North down to the harbor. So, I believe it's downhill from here, so shouldn't need to use much engine power. Yeah, these long downhill stretches are a good use for the dynamic brake on this thing. I don't find the dynamic brake on the DH4 quite as useful as the one on the DE6, just because it doesn't have the dedicated cooling cycle, so it can pretty quickly lead to overheating, but that being said, there's plenty of cases where it's very useful. Okay, we are just about to pull into the harbor in town here as we complete our run in the DH4. Okay, we are pulling into the station here, finishing up our run of this crude oil. And we can come to a nice stop here. Okay, I'm going to be putting this loco away after this, so we can go ahead and get this thing packed up and move on to our next locomotive. And now we're entering the world of the truly heavy locomotives, starting with the S282, or as I prefer to call it, the Best Guess Express. This fire-breathing monstrosity can comfortably haul up to 800 tons in a worst-case scenario. It's also extremely fast. Now, this locomotive, truth be told, the way I could sum it up is I like the idea of this locomotive more than I like the loco itself. We'll get more into detail as we get moving here. So we seem to be doing well there. We got plenty of steam. So let's set our cutoff forward and release any brakes that we have. Open the old cylinder cocks. Looks like they're open. And we can get moving. Say one thing, this thing does sound great. Walk back the cutoff. Get rid of some of those excessive sparks, but looks like we are moving. We can go ahead and close the cylinder cocks. Can walk back the cutoff even more. What is that at now? About, yeah, just under 50. Yeah, we got a lot of excess steam going here. I didn't leave the blower on, did I? Nope. All right, well, we can damper down a bit. Gotta pull the whistle. See, now this thing has a train whistle that I think is appropriate for a proper steam engine. We can regulate her down a little bit. We're at speed. Now, to get back to the topic at hand, things that you might like about this locomotive and dislike. To start with the likes, it looks great, right? Especially in the blue demonstrator paint job, you know, like Thomas the Tank Engine didn't skip leg day. It's also extremely fast. I believe it is the fastest locomotive in the game, and it has tons of power. It's pretty close to the power levels of the DE6. So yeah, on paper, it is a fantastic locomotive. So that's all fine and dandy. Now, as for what I don't like about it, the visibility is awful. This is as good as we're going to be able to see here. I don't like having to operate seated, but you kind of do in this thing just to be able to see the speed limit signs. I can probably cut off forward, let us accelerate a bit. And yeah, that really puts a crimp in my enjoyment of this thing. And I think that's getting back to what I mean about how I like the idea of this loco more than the loco itself. You know, very fast, very powerful, and cheaper to operate than, say, the DE6, which it's almost as powerful as. And of course, you balance that out with the higher operator workload of a steam engine. But I just can't get past the lack of visibility. Also, inexplicably, there's no cab light in this thing. I have a lantern hung and a light bar put on the front of the tender, and that makes it do okay, but I don't know, I feel like that's an oversight. Like, there really should be a cab light in this thing. But, you know, it is what it is. And there's plenty of fun to be had. This is the case for all locomotives in this game, but the sound of this thing is just great. Like, you heard it when we were getting going. Each of those big initial steam choofs was, you know, just fantastic. I also like the gear light, or at least the concept. I'm not entirely sure how you're supposed to be able to actually see it without using the external view. But yeah, it's a neat idea. The visibility just like really, really kind of makes it less fun for me. I don't even remember. I can't tell if we missed a speed limit or not. That one says 4. Okay, well, time to brake. But hey, you know, we're driving a steam engine all on our own, and it's not going terribly. So, you know, appreciate what you have, I guess. Yeah. Also, this thing doesn't have windshield wipers. So, yeah, that's another thing. You know, again, like the idea, it's a steam locomotive. It might not have all the creature comforts that a more modern one does. I understand that, but yeah, again, seems like a bit of an oversight. I think you're supposed to open the window, but then that blocks more of your view. So yeah, I don't know. It's such a gorgeous engine. It sounds so cool, and it is fun to drive in a certain sense. But I don't know. It just all these smaller issues, I think, prevent me from using it as kind of my daily driver, because I sure would like to. Yeah, I do wish there was a gadget that you could install that gave you the speed limit. That would be that would make this thing a lot less scary, because you know anytime you turn to look at a gauge or shovel coal in or turn on or off the injector, it you know, I worry that I'm going to miss a speed limit change. I also like kind of how the difficulty is scaled here. Like running this engine and getting from point A to point B really isn't that hard, but doing it really efficiently, you know, with is going to take a lot more practice and understanding. So yeah, I like that there's still more to learn. We are skidding. Okay. Yeah, it's just my luck that we decided to run this engine in the rain. It's not a great performer there, but you know that's the game. Blower on. Got to get this fire going again. Should be able to coast the rest of the way as long as I don't wheel slip too much. Yeah, this thing is a challenge in the rain, but again, that's kind of the idea. It's, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of meant to be an advanced locomotive. I say as I slip it out. Oh boy, this speed change is not going to be fun. You know, I thought I'd gotten better at this thing, but oh my gosh. Well, time for sand. That should help us get moving here. Well, maybe the whistle can give us some good luck. Yeah, we are wasting a lot of water. We should have enough to get where we're going, though. If we can ever make it up this hill. Oh, yep. Can't turn the sander off yet. Yeah, I've never had a run with wheel slip this bad. But again, I don't use this engine that much. Yeah, turning left in this thing isn't fun because you can't see anything. You can, I guess, run to the other side, but All right, and we are pulling into the steel mill. That was a pretty harrowing ride. Again, I want to enjoy this loco. There's a lot of potential for fun here, but I can't relax and pay attention to anything on account of the visibility, and I think that really kind of harms it. Again, it's supposed to be a bit of an advanced locomotive, so I understand that, but I don't know. I feel like they're taking too much. Yeah, it does look nice. Bring it to a stop here. Yeah, that's quite a storm. Of course, we're wheel skidding again. That, as they say, is that. Let's go ahead and get the handbrake on before we get out of here. And yeah, that was again pretty harrowing ride, but yeah, I want to love this engine. I love so much about it, but you just can't see anything, and that really, that prevents me from enjoying it. I do hope that that's something the devs will rectify at some point. Just give us a bigger window over here. That would probably be enough. There's always going to be the challenge of seeing past the long nose, but that's that's a steam locomotive. That's just the way it is. And with that, we can move on from this very exciting but flawed machine. And now we arrive at the true late-game locomotive, the DE6, or, as I call it, one size hauls all. This V12 powered diesel electric machine can fairly comfortably haul up to 1,000 tons uphill and in the rain. It's also MU compatible. Okay, so we are finally there. We are at the biggest and strongest and arguably coolest locomotive we have here, the mighty DE6. This is kind of the aspirational locomotive for this game. Once you get it, there's not a ton of reason to use anything else, which kind of stinks, but it's just a great engine. Works for a lot of different things. It has a good level of speed. It of course has a massive hauling capacity, and it's easy to use. I enjoy operating it immensely. So what we're going to do here is something a little bit different. So obviously DE6 is so great, yay, but what's even better? And the answer, of course, is 2 DE6s. So we're going to pull our biggest train here by showcasing the power of our biggest engine along with his helper. So I'm using 2 DE6s. We're going to be pulling a whopping 1,600 tons out of the coal mine south up to the coal power plant. Well, a lot of fun to be had here. Let's see how this goes. First, I have to back this up into position a little bit, but why don't we use that as an opportunity to get this thing moving? So obviously get our breakers going. And while I'm in here, I can turn on the cab lights. And then we can get this thing started. I do like having the starter on the outside. I'm glad all the locos aren't like that, but it is, a nice change of pace. Same goes for the handbrake on the outside. All right, we are ready to get moving. Let's blow this horn. See, now that's a proper train horn right there. So, okay, we got the brake cut off. Yeah, that's all good. Yeah, I think we don't have any brakes at all here. So let's turn on our bell, just because we can. And let's get moving. Yes, in my infinite wisdom, I had left the independent brake on in the rear engine. So yeah, we're really cruising now. All right, so yeah, hopefully, unlike that harrowing trek we had with the steam loco, the S282, we can have a nice leisurely cruise over to the coal power plant. It's still raining, but yeah, that shouldn't be as much of an issue in this thing. Oh, we need lights. I can run the wipers a little bit. And now to address the likes and dislikes for this locomotive. Things to like, well, pretty much everything. It has enormous power, it's quite good at speed, it's fairly easy to operate, and it sounds great, including the horn. As for things to dislike, really not much. The visibility isn't amazing. If you want to have good forward visibility, you need to sit down, and you're really only limited to this front window. But that said, it's never really been an issue for me. You can see the tracks, you can see all of the signals and speed limits just fine. But yeah, I think mostly the issue with this loco is it's just too good. There's little reason to do much else once you have this, especially if you're able to use 2 of them, right? Like, check out how long this train is. Like 1,600 tons. That's a lot. Nobody forces you to use any given locomotive in this game. It's there is the career progression, of course, but once you get to kind of the end game where you have all the locos available, it's just kind of whatever you want to do. If you want to kind of min-max and everything, then yeah, use a DE6, use 2 DE6s. That's great. You can make a lot of money doing that, but nothing's stopping you from having a good time with the other engines. I really do enjoy driving this locomotive so much. It's not a huge workload once you're up and running, but that's no different from the other diesel locomotives, really. But given just the size of the trains that you can pull with this thing, you of course do have to pay very active attention to the track grade and speed limits and switches and everything, just because when the trains get this big, you can pretty easily end up overtaxing your brakes. This is actually the only loco where I've ended up having the brakes overheat, just because you can be pulling so much weight behind you. But yeah, overall, it's just a fun machine to drive. Yeah, this is the only locomotive where I find myself really using the dynamic brake a lot. The dynamic brake on the DM3, the thing is because the DM3 is so slow, I feel like you're so rarely in a position where it's useful. The one on the DH4, it works, and I've used it quite a bit, but there's nowhere for the heat to go on that one, so you can't keep it on too long. can quickly lead to heating issues. That said, it's of course still useful in some cases. The one on the DE6 is just great because it has its own like heat dissipation system. You can just turn it on and let it rip. Pretty great. That's a big train. The game certainly changes once you unlock the DE6. I would say it opens up, obviously, the world of the much heavier freight jobs. To say nothing of taking multiple jobs and using multiple engines. But there's just so much less frustration with it than a lot of the kind of intermediate locomotives. I had a ton of fun with this thing in my first few hours of playtime after unlocking it. Was very satisfying to be able to take on heavier jobs and have them not be an exercise in frustration. And I think kind of some icing on the cake of what makes the DE6 so fun is I really like the sound. I think it might have something to do with the giant diesel being right behind you, but I feel like the sound experience when you're in the cab, even with all the doors closed, I mean obviously it's louder if we open it, is one of the better ones in this game. That said, again, the sound in this game in general is just wonderful. Yeah, every locomotive kind of feels distinct in its sound, but there's not just one sound for every locomotive. There's the engine, the game kind of speaks to you through the sound. There's so much satisfaction in just cruising down the rails and just hearing the train speak to you. And the DE6 I think is the best of that, at least my favorite. That is a long train. In the mist I can't even see the end. Yeah, that's quite a train. I'm pretty sure that's the longest train I've ever pulled in this game. Yeah, with a train this heavy, I don't know what good the dynamic brake is going to do, so we're going to use the traditional brake. Especially going into this curve here. Yeah, we cut that a little bit close. Yeah, let's see how far we have to zoom out to see the end of the train. Oh, that mist makes it hard, but we can kind of see back there. It's a lot of train. Yeah, listen to that engine. I love that. Yeah, we're really cranking up this hill. Oh, wheel slip, huh? Sander is where? There it is. Yeah, I gotta throttle down a little. We're actually hitting temp here. Yeah, I've never maxed out 2 DE6s before. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that was a pretty serious hill we just came up. Yeah, just having a nice leisurely stroll here. Alright, and we are about pulling into our slot at the coal power plant, finishing up our gigantic haulage mission with not one, but 2 of the incredible DE6s. Always a good time. Look at that train. 20 cars. That's easily the biggest single freight job I've ever done. Is that even going to fit on this whole siding? It should. Come close to taking up the whole siding. Pretty impressive. Okay, well, and we can bring that to a stop. Okay, well, let's get this thing shut down and our mission turned in. Even shutting down, it sounds cool. All right, time to say goodbye to the venerable DE6 and its little helper as we move on to our next victim. Finishing up our lineup today is the BE2 Micro Shunter, or as I like to call it, 18 holes of horsepower. Just look at this little thing. It has a best case load rating of 800 tons, but in practice, actually pulling anything for real, you're looking at about 50 tons. So with all of the proper locomotives out of the way, we can finish up by using this little Fisher-Price contraption, otherwise known as the BE2 Micro Shunter. Now, this thing is fun just for pushing locomotives around in the museum, but for the first time, I'm going to actually try to take it on a freight mission. So we'll see how that goes. But for now, let's go ahead and get this started up. So obviously there's no engine to get going. We just need to turn the breakers on here. And turn the cab light on? Yeah. All right, well, here goes nothing. We are taking the Micro Shunter on a freight job. So are there wipers? There might not be wipers. What does the horn even sound like on this thing? Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, well, I guess let's do this. Yeah, here we go. Beep, beep. I do want to be careful of wheel slip here with the rain, but we should be okay. But yeah, no wipers. Didn't really expect that. Let's try maxing this thing out, see what happens. The speedometer red line's at 30. Oh boy. Listen to that thing whine. It's really working hard. We are presumably well on our way here to Oil Well Central using the BE2 micro shunter. So, as far as things I like and dislike about this thing, what I like, I mean, it's small. It's very easy to spawn in and move things around, particularly if you need to move things around move locomotives around in the museum. It's perfect for that because you don't need to worry about getting out a DE2 or something else. So if you just need to shuffle things around there, it's perfect for that. I've done a couple of shunting missions with it. Oh my, we are at the red line level of speed here for this thing. Let's back off a little bit. But yeah, I've done some shunting missions with it. If you just need something really quick, I still maintain that the DE2 is the master of shunting. So how fast are we really going? 42. Okay, well, hopefully it won't explode. But yeah, the DE2 is still, I think, the reigning champion for most shunting use cases. This thing is really only useful for very small, quick jobs. And it's nice because you don't have to start an engine or anything. Yikes, that is, I do not like the sound that it's making when we get over 30 here, and we have no idea how fast we're going. But yeah, for lightning quick jobs, that's nice. You can just spawn it in, move your cars around, and then clear it away. No need to worry about starting an engine or anything. And what I don't like about it, I mean, there's not too much. It's just, you know, it's a very specific vehicle. I will say it very much is not meant for what we're using it for right now, but I wanted to take it for a spin. And isn't it just adorable? Look at that little thing. So time will tell if we're actually doing thousands of dollars of damage to this thing just by taking it on the open rails and taking it up to, I mean, the speedometer won't even tell us. Almost 50 here. I don't feel great about that. Let's back off a little. Yeah, there's that sound again. I don't like that. I can imagine the train brakes in this thing are not great either. But thankfully we got a pretty light load behind us. That seems a bit weird. You get 10 throttle settings, but presumably you're not supposed to take this thing over 30 kph. Yeah, I kind of wish we had some wipers, but I guess this thing is not really meant to be driven on the open rails, just meant to push around at a few kph. We do actually probably want to brake a little bit. I've taken this switch many times just over 30, but in this thing, I don't know what's going to happen. We're still very good on battery charge. So, hey, you know, maybe this thing can be used as a road locomotive. I mean, isn't that classy? Look at that. Yeah, I'm still not comfortable, like, maxing out the throttle because of that damn speedometer. You know what? Here. You only YOLO once. Let's go ahead and open this thing up a bit. I'll keep an eye on the temp and everything, but it seems like it's doing okay. We're not exactly gaining much speed, but... Is that throttle out of 10? Out of 9. Okay. I do actually like that horn. It's grown on me. I mean, it's a car horn, but, you know, what are you going to do with this little thing? Let's go max throttle. See what this thing's got. Yeah, I would really appreciate some windshield wipers. Wow, I wonder what it would take to get this thing up to 90 kilometers an hour. Probably need a pretty steep hill, and it would probably explode, or at least the wheels would fall off. Okay, we are finishing up our, well, technically a freight run. I guess it was a logistics mission, but regardless, we took the BE2 micro shunter on the open rails. It's a bit interesting. No windshield wipers. The speedometer maxes out at 30, so anything past that is just wild mass guessing. But hey, you know, it worked. And again, we didn't even use that much battery charge. Now, you know, granted, we were able to coast a lot on this route, but you know, I was surprised. It actually worked. All things considered, it performed admirably. Yeah, and no engine to shut off, so pretty easy to put this thing away. And with that, we find ourselves back at the Railway Museum, where we can give all of these hardworking locomotives a much-deserved rest. I've had such a good time playing through Derail Valley. I kind of wanted to make this video as a little bit of a retrospective, so hopefully you had a tiny bit of fun at least watching along with me go down memory lane here. And yeah, thank you so much for watching.